What were the dreams that he wrote down? What were his thoughts? And that, my friend, that, my viewer, that is legacy. I cannot allow outside influences to play into my mind and pull me out of a season that God has me in. You got to stay in the rest and recovery.
No matter what you go through, keep dreaming. Keep going, don't quit, keep reaching. You can be the best you wanna be, gotta believe it. Keep the faith, the mustard seed is all needed. You gotta want it as bad as you breathe. My journey and your journey different but unique. I wear the CJ on my chest as a reminder.
Well, good morning and welcome back to the Keep Dreaming podcast. Today is episode 10. And as a matter of fact, we are halfway through the season. You see, I'm actually going to do 20 episodes this season, so we are tackling episode 10, and I feel like today's episode, just like every episode, is going to be special. I pray and hope that you are doing well. And so if you got your coffee, your tea, we're going to kind of jump into our coffee segment. On today, I am drinking a caramel latte. I wanted something that was soothing, calming, because that's what our episode is going to be about on today. So if you got your mug, whatever it is that you got, let's do a cheers. Now let's get into today's episode. So we are halfway through the season, and typically on the different episodes, I'm normally pushing you to chase your dreams, pushing you to get up, pushing you to get after it and go. But I want to take a different approach, especially when we are halfway through. You see, society has conditioned us that if you are not doing something, if you're not on the go, if you're not grinding, if you're not putting in the work, then you are not being successful. And I couldn't disagree more. Now, when I first started out being an entrepreneur, that was my thing. I was like, man, I need to grind. If I'm not putting in the work, then obviously I'm not creating the success that I need or the success that I want. But as I've learned over the years, that doesn't really do anything. Just because you are doing a whole bunch of different things does not mean that you are being productive. And there may come a season, there may come a time where you are required to do absolutely nothing. I know that's different than what we have been taught. I know that's different than what you have learned. Now, I'm not saying sit on the couch, binge watch TV all day, every day. We've talked about that. If you're watching TV, you're typically watching somebody else's dream, but there may come a point in time, may come a point in a season where God pulls you back, pulls the foot off the gas pedal, and now it's time to maybe either go at a cruise control or maybe to stop completely and rest. You see, that's going to be today's title. Today's title for episode 10 is Rest and Recovery. I got to find a moment in time on my journey, on the journey to my dream, on the journey to chasing whatever it is that God has given me the ability to chase, and I got to find rest period. I got to find the ability to recover. I can't go all the time. Life doesn't work that way. Our bodies do not work that way. Our bodies are finite. They are deteriorating day by day by day. And so, yes, I want you to grind. Yes, I want you to push, but you won't always have that energy. Sometimes God is requiring us to rest and recover. And so that's going to be today's title. So, I'm always finding a movie. I got the perfect movie for today. 2005. Now, this is a rapper. He's not my favorite rapper, but I do like him, and he actually branched off into the movie industry. But we're going to talk about Ice Cube. Ice Cube produced a movie in 2005, and the movie is entitled, Are We There Yet? Think about your dreams, thinking about where it is that you're trying to go in life. Oftentimes, you may ask yourself, am I there yet? Like, where am I in my journey? And so in that movie, they are actually going on a vacation. The first destination is their home. The last destination is the vacation spot that they're trying to get to. But there's a journey along the way. And so the little boy in the movie, he's always asking, just kind of like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And they go through a tremendous amount of different hurdles, but there's one particular scene in that movie where the car breaks down. The car breaks down and they are forced to get a hotel for the night. Hence, they have to rest and recover. Now, there's a lesson in this. We won't always be able to just go. Things in life will happen. That situation with their car, it just kind of happened. It wasn't anything that they did necessarily wrong, and it also did not mean that they were not getting to the destination at some point, but there was a hindrance, there was a pause. And after that pause, after they stayed the night in the hotel, they were able to get the car fixed, and then they were able to continue on their journey. But I want us to be intentional about the rest period. I want us to be intentional about the pauses that come in life. Those are actually good things. I know it's a hard pause, or it's a hard way to condition your mind that, man, I haven't done anything in 2 weeks. And am I not being successful? But you're right where you need to be. I've talked a lot about alignment. As long as you are aligned where God wants you to be, even if that is in a rest period, you are exactly where you need to be, and you are doing exactly what you need to do. The destination, you're still going to get there. The journey hasn't stopped. They were still able to get to their destination after their rest period, after their recovery period. So you got to be able to allow rest to come. You got to be able to allow recovery to come. And that's exactly what this episode is going to be about. Now, me reflecting just again over my own personal life, personal story, there have been many recovery periods. One in particular was when I was playing football. We would grind so much. We would have practice, we would have games, but in that grinding period, our coaches would identify rest periods, rest and recovery periods. This would include either getting in a cold ice tub, massage therapy, stretching, or just a day where we didn't do no physical activity. We had meditation periods where therapists would come in and they would allow us or help us to go through meditating periods. Massage therapists would come in, and this day would be completely centered around just rest and recovery. And then after we went through that day, our body would be acclimated, would be rested and rejuvenated to be able to go back to practice, go back in our journey. And that allowed us to compete at our peak performance. Hear me again. That rest and recovery period allowed us to compete at our peak recovery. But maybe my athletic story is not hitting home. Maybe you're saying, man, Charleston, I get that, but what about in my own life? What about in my own personal life? Where I got one for you. Where I'm currently at in my life right now is a pause. You see, I am one of those people that I gotta go. My dad, he works all the time outside of work. He cannot sit down. And I have picked up that trait just like my dad. And so in this season, me building out my business, me going on my full-time entrepreneurial journey, in my mind, I wanna grind every day. But God, maybe over the last month, has set me down and paused different things in my life. And that has been different for me, because I'm waking up and there's nothing to do. It's not that I'm being lazy. It's not that I'm, not trying to find something to do, but there's literally nothing to do. And so I've had to realize that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm exactly where God wants me to be, but this is more so about time for him to work, not for Charleston to work. Charleston needs to rest. Charleston needs to recover. What does that rest and recovery look like? I'm spending more time meditating. I'm spending more time praying. I'm spending more time learning about myself and the things that I enjoy, the things that help me to recover. Some of those things are working out. Some of those things are making coffee, reading. Now, I'm not being lazy, but I'm also understanding that this is not the season for me to just grind. This is the season for me to be intentional. Remember that I said there are two forms of work. You are either working on you or things are working for you. So if I'm in a season where rest and recovery is the primary aspect that God is wanting me to do, that season is identified as working on you. So you're still doing work, but you're not doing work in an exterior mindset where money is coming in, transactions are happening. Working on you is an internal fortitude where I am building up my confidence. I am figuring out what works for me, what doesn't work. I'm figuring out what it is that I actually want to do. Maybe God is wanting me to pivot. Maybe it's time to branch off into a different career. I am taking time to work on me. So the rest and recovery period, you're still doing work, but you are doing work on you. You are not doing work for you. Once you come out of the rest and recovery period, that's work for you. But when you are in your rest and recovery period, you are doing work on you. All right, so what's the connecting piece between the movie Are We There Yet and then my own personal story? The connecting piece is being able to understand where are you. In the movie Are We There Yet? When the car broke down, they realized that they couldn't go any further until they were able to get the car fixed. So in that movie, they had a pause, they recognized where they were at. In my own personal life, my own personal testimony, I realized that I was in a place not for me to do more, but for me to actually do less. God had given me an opportunity to actually rest. How many times do we pray, man, God, I just need a break? And then the break comes, and then we think that it's an uncommon or unfamiliar place, and then we want to hurry up and go back. So the connecting piece is, number one, understanding where you are. The second thing in understanding this aspect is removing outside influences. What I mean by that is because social media will play so much into your mind where you see other people putting in work, you see other people doing different things, but your journey is not their journey. And so if I understand that I'm in a rest period, I can't be looking at somebody else and I see them grinding and then I want to go pick up my backpack and get back to work because I think that I'm behind or that I'm losing something. You are exactly where you need to be, but you got to remove the outside influences. We had an episode earlier this season where we talked about filtering our environment. I cannot allow outside influences to play into my mind and pull me out of a season that God has me in. You got to stay in the rest and recovery period. We're going to talk about a Bible lesson here in a minute, but if I pull myself out of this environment, I run the risk of either creating a more deeper delay, or I run the risk of creating some type of hazard that God never meant for me. If God has aligned you in a rest and recovery period, even if it feels foreign, especially to my young men, I know that we are built and wired to work, but sometimes we got to learn to rest and recover. So the connecting piece is understanding where you are, where God has you, and then being able to remove any outside influences so that you can stay in that period, stay in that environment until it's time to go back to work. Your sabbatical, I know that it feels different, but you're exactly where you need to be. So for a Bible story, we've talked about David before, but I want to give us a different perspective because in the past, we've talked about David being a soldier, David being a king, David fighting, having all these battles. Like David was a warrior. David was a man after God's own heart. He was a great man. But there's a particular portion, and it's a small verse in 2 Samuel chapter 7, where God gives David rest. So I'm reading out of the Message version. And 2 Samuel chapter 7, I'm going to read verses 1 and 2. Before long, the king made himself at home, and God gave him peace from all his enemies. Then one day, King David said to Nathan the prophet, "Look at this. Here I am comfortable in a luxurious house of cedar, and the chest of God sits in a plain tent." So in prior chapters, David had been fighting all of these different battles. But there comes a point where God finally gives him peace, rest from his enemies. So that's not uncommon for God to give us these seasons to rest and recover. Because in 2 Samuel chapter 8, David goes back to fighting. David goes back to kicking butt, getting back to who he originally was. But God had given him a period where he was intentional to rest. So in understanding that, if you come into a rest period, it's not uncommon because David, he enjoyed that period. Now, he had to be intentional about it because, like I said, in 2 Samuel chapter 8, he actually goes back to fighting. But in chapter 7, God intentionally gave him a period and a season of rest. Now, the other reason why rest and recovery is so important is because maybe God has have you in this place because he's wanting you to assess where you are. Remember, the dream is at the end, and we've started at the beginning, but now we have moved along in our journey. Maybe God is wanting you to assess where you are. This is important because this allows for either redirection or continuation. Hear me again. God is wanting you to assess where you are because there may be a moment for either redirection or continuation. I got to understand if God is wanting me to continue on this path or if he is redirecting me in a different space, in a different location. So maybe that pause, that rest and recovery allows you time to really understand that. And so there's a book that I want to recommend, and the book is called Boss Moves. And it's by a famous wealthy guy named Myron Golden. And this book is very, very beautiful in how it talks about entrepreneurship, chasing your dreams, being able to create the business and the legacy that you want. But the reason why I wanted to point out either redirection or continuation is that in this book, Myron points out 5 steps into the creative process. If you are an entrepreneur, and you can be an entrepreneur whether you are creating a business or even creating a family. Entrepreneurship has no distinct definition where it's solely tied to business. I know that we related to that, but it can be in any regard, especially when you are creating and chasing your dream. But he talks about 5 steps in the creative process. Here we go. He says the first step is intention. The second step is disruption. The third step is inspiration. The fourth step is illumination. And then the fifth step is completion. So out of these 5 steps, where are you in your journey? Now, he references Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, where he talks about God creating the very first day. Now, it's very important, hear me well when we talking about this. If God made us in his image, and if he is the ultimate creator, we are creators as well, and we have the ability to create. So if you are chasing your dream, chasing your vision, you are creating something. But on my journey to creating, I got to understand, where am I? Am I in the intention phase where I am trying to figure out what it is that I am wanting to create? Am I experiencing the disruption phase? So in Genesis chapter 1, it talked about how darkness was on the earth. Disruption means that there is no form to what you are trying to create. Then you get to the third phase, which is going to be inspiration. You have inspiration to create. You have the idea. You start to understand what it is that you want to do. Then you have the fourth stage, which is illumination. This is where God said, let there be light. So light starts to identify what is about to be created. So maybe you're in the illumination phase where you know what it is, but now you're asking God to shine a light to move that darkness out of the way for the dream to start to come into fruition. Or maybe you have finally reached the completion stage where you have completed the dream. The rest and recovery period allows you to identify what stage you are at. If I understand what stage that I am, then now I'm able to create the strategy to keep moving. Maybe you're asking yourself, why is this so difficult? Because you haven't understood where you are. Are you in the intention phase? Are you experiencing disruption? Are you maybe trying to illuminate the light? Maybe you have reached the completion stage and now it's time to move on to the next thing, next project. I got to be able to understand where I'm at, and that happens in the rest and recovery period. I reset my mind. I reset my heart. I reset my spirit, and I'm asking God, all right, God, we've hit a pause. Where am I now? What is it that you're trying to show me? Is it time for me to maybe go in a redirection, or if it's time for me to go into a continuation? Again, this book is called Boss Moves, and I would definitely encourage you to check it out. Now, there are 3 principles that I'm wanting us to take away from this episode. The first, rest is strategic, it's not laziness. You can be lazy in your rest period, but I want us to think along the lines that rest is strategic. We are getting ready to strategize on what's next, what to do next. In 2 Samuel chapter 7, after David rested, when we move to chapter 8, David goes and fights the Philistines. This is a strategic, it didn't say that David went and fought another battle. He went and fought a specific enemy. So rest is strategic. Something specific is about to happen. God is wanting you to do a specific thing after your rest and recovery period. So we got to understand what that is. So your rest period is strategic. We're not allowing it to be a lazy period. That's going to be the first principle. The second principle is recovery creates longevity. In the last episode, I talked about endurance, where you got to be able to endure through the process. The only way that you're going to be able to endure is that you got to be able to recover. You got to be able to recover from fatigue. You got to be able to recover from tiredness. You got to be able to recover along your journey. And so the second principle is understanding that I got to recover. I can't go. My body can only do so much. This body is finite. It is deteriorating every single day. So I got to be able to make sure that I am recovering in my journey. That's going to be the second principle. And then the third principle is that stillness reveals strategy. Being still allows you to understand where you are on your journey. It allows you to strategize. Remember, I said it allows you to either redirect or continue. So being able to be still, I know it's difficult. I hate being still. I even when I'm talking and moving, I'm always doing something with my hands because it's hard for me to be still. But what I have learned in this thing that called life, I got to be able to be still, and I got to be able to be quiet enough. I got to be able to quiet my environment. I got to be able to quiet my life long enough so that I can hear God. God is in the stillness. God is in the quiet. God is not in the hustle and bustle. He can redirect us at any point, even through the noise. But if you want to get a specific word from God, if you want to hear a specific direction from God, you got to get quiet. Not only do you got to get quiet, you got to get still. I got to stop moving. I got to stop listening to my outside environment. I got to get into a cultivated, safe space, and I got to be able to quiet everything around me, quiet my mind, quiet my thoughts, quiet my heart, quiet my intentions, quiet my emotions, quiet the voices, the noise, in order to hear God. Once I hear God, I can get up and I can move again. But I got to learn to be still. So those are going to be the three principles that I want us to take away from this episode. Rest and recovery can only be beneficial to you if you are intentional about it. I'm going to say that again. Rest and recovery can only be beneficial to you if you are intentional about it. Now, that is kind of wrapping up our episode on today. I felt like it was maybe a little short and sweet, but I want to move into another segment because when we come back next week, we're going to pick up and we're going to keep rolling. But in this journey, in this life, everybody always talks about generational wealth. We talk about leaving and creating a legacy. God put it on my heart to share this segment with you. So let's dive in. Let's pay attention. Legacy, generational wealth is not solely tied to money. I know we have been conditioned to believe that, but generational wealth can be spiritual. Legacy can be spiritual. Generational wealth can be mental. Legacy can be mental. So, Charleston, what do you mean by that? People have taught me that I need to have assets, that I need to have investments to be able to pass that down to my kids. Nothing wrong with that. But there's something greater, something better for you to pass down to your kids, and that's going to be your spiritual journey. Well, Charleston, what do you mean by that? If we take the Bible, for example, in the Bible, there are God's words. There are God's words. There are prophets that have left prayers, their feelings, their emotions. And through all of that, we have been able to kind of envision ourselves in their lives and be like, man, you know what? I'm actually experiencing David. You know, somebody is hating on you, being that in Saul. I feel somebody is hating on me. And you are able to put yourself in their story and be able to relate to it. So a while back, I had gotten a journal and I was writing just my different thoughts in the journal. And then I started to transition and I started to write different prayers in my journal. There was no rhyme or reason to it, but God just kind of put it on my heart to do it. And so I will write these prayers out. I will insert my thoughts, my emotions. I would just kind of talk to God in my journal just about what it is that I was going through. I would write my dreams in this journal. And I've talked to you all about getting your journal. I would have you do your homework assignments in there. But there was one night God brought it to me, and I thought it was the most powerful thing ever. And he said, go get a safe, kind of like a lockbox, and put your journals in the safe. So at this point, I had maybe completed about 2 or 3 different journals. And when he told me that, he also told me that this is something that I can pass down to my kids. Not just a house, not just a car, not just, tangible things, but these are intangible because of the prayers that I wrote in here, because of my thoughts, because of my dreams. So one day when I'm long and gone, my kids can read about what did dad experience? Like, how did dad talk to God? How did dad pray to God? What were the prayers that dad prayed to get to this point? What were the dreams that he wrote down? What were his thoughts? And that, my friend, that, my viewer, that is legacy. That is generational wealth. When the kids are able to experience spiritual guidance, when they are able to experience the prayers that you prayed, the thoughts that you wrote down, the talks and the conversations that you had with God, because there's going to come a point in time where they're going to need that. They're going to need direction. Your voice is not going to be good enough. It's going to be the words. There's a particular reason why God put words in the Bible, and they are the living words, because we can go back time and time again. Now, your thoughts in your journal is not the living word, so it's not the same, but it's an opportunity, it's a roadmap to guide your kids, to guide your family along this journey that we call life, and that is legacy. That's spiritual legacy, which is greater than physical legacy. We got to redirect our mind. We got to change our mind. Everything is not about gain as far as tangible things. These things of this world are passing away. So if they are passing away, what are things that are going to be able to stand the test of time? And one of the things that has been able to stand the test of time are words. Words are very powerful. Just imagine if you were in a space, and maybe you are, where you are afforded the opportunity to read your parents' thoughts. But if you are not afforded that opportunity, think of how great it would be to be able to understand not David, not Paul, not James, not all these different Peter in the Bible, these different people, but your own dad, your own mom, your own brother. What if you were able to read their prayers, see the miracle in their lives, see the journey in their lives from foundation to destination? What if you were able to read about all of that? So my encouragement to you is not just to be writing in this, create that roadmap for your future family. Because one day they will pick this up, they will read about it, and it will create more of a generational wealth than you could ever imagine, than anything else that you could leave behind. I want you to go get a safe, and I want you to make sure that you are locking up your journals. So for your homework this week, I have no homework. I just want you to rest. I want you to recharge. I want you to recover. I want you to think about what it is that you are wanting to do. What is God telling you? What is God showing you? Is he redirecting you, or is he allowing you to continue on this path, on this journey that you are on? I appreciate you all sticking with me. We're halfway through the season. I wanted to kick it up a notch. I know last season I did 12 episodes, but this season I was strategic because I wanted 20. I wanted to give you as much information, as much knowledge as I know in order to help you in your life. So if you feel like this episode helped you, motivated you, or just allowed you to recharge, again, I want you to like, share, subscribe to the YouTube. I want you to share this episode with somebody, and I want you to rest this week. I don't want you to hit the grind button. I want you to hit the rest, recovery, recharge button, because when we come back next week, we're going to get back to pushing it. But this week, I want you to be able to take that mini sabbatical for yourself, understanding that you are right where you're supposed to be, you're in alignment, and it's happening for you, not against you. Again, I appreciate you all on this journey with me. I'll see you back next week for episode 11, part 2 of season 2 of the Keep Dreaming podcast. As always, be blessed. Keep dreaming.
You gotta be able to dream again. After you accomplish that one dream, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to God, you owe it to your family to be able to do it again, to dream again. But when you dream again, you're not only dreaming for yourself, somebody else is